On our anniversary, I rushed home to surprise my wife, but when I opened the door, the first thing I saw was a man completely naked. The wife screamed, threw the quilt over the man's face, and spread her arms to block him. It's already happened. I warn you not to act recklessly. Hitting someone is against the law. If you dare touch him, I'll sue you. The gifts and flowers in my hands felt almost like 1,000 pounds. She couldn't see the surprise I had carefully prepared, wholeheartedly siding with her lover against me. Looking at them in front of me, I smiled and adjusted the position of the miniature camera on my chest. You're right, then let's have a good talk. Since she wants to indulge herself, then I can let go. However, with the video as evidence, I don't think she can possibly take any of my property. On the marital bed I had personally purchased lay a man and a woman. The woman was my wife. The man, someone I did not know. He was holding Lydia, sleeping soundly. My mind went completely blank, and mechanically I turned on the light, waking the two on the bed. The man got up and saw me, then immediately shrank back under the covers. Lydia opened her sleepy eyes and immediately grabbed the blanket, firmly blocking the man. She looked at me warily and opened her hands. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? If you had said you were coming today, I wouldn't have called Alex over to save you from feeling awkward. She looked at me calmly and confidently, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. The flowers and gifts I was holding fell to the ground with a crash, and my heart ached like it was being pierced by needles. She probably forgot that today is our anniversary. I wanted to surprise her, which is why I hurried over. Unexpectedly, I ended up interrupting her date with someone else. How ridiculous. On my anniversary, something like this happens. Taking a deep breath, I spoke weakly, so how do you want to resolve this? Lydia pulled back the covers, her voice gentle. Don't be afraid, I won't let him hurt you. This scene, this feeling, fiercely stimulated my brain. What do I want to do? My bottom line is infidelity, let alone seeing them lying on the same bed with my own eyes. The two in front of me actually had the nerve to be affectionate right in front of me. I clenched my fists tightly. Lydia caught sight of it and screamed. Simon, what do you want to do? I warn you, hitting someone is against the law. If you lay a hand on him, we will hold you responsible. It turned out that I, the legitimate and rightful husband, was actually an outsider. My anger vanished, leaving only helplessness. Let him go, and then we can talk. After saying this, I collapsed at the doorway. Lydia gave me a wary glance and threw back the covers. The man stood up and began dressing very calmly. I saw a few bright red hickeys on his chest. Lydia stood in front of the man the whole time, gently soothing him. Don't be afraid, I'm protecting you. You go back first, I can handle him, and I'll contact you later. The man finished dressing and was about to leave, but before going, he held Lydia's hand again. Call me immediately if anything happens. If he dares to lay a hand on you, I'll call the police right away. I let out a bitter laugh. What a touching love story. Yet here I am, the villain. After the man left, Lydia stood in front of me. Simon, you saw it all. As you can see, someone else is in my heart. We've been apart for so long, and we're both tired, aren't we? Love is just gradually worn down like this. Really? I looked at the flowers and gifts at my feet. If I were really tired, why would I endure hours of travel and carefully prepare a gift, just to come over and celebrate an anniversary with her? I had been preparing this surprise for a long time, even hiding a miniature camera before entering, just to capture Lydia's happy smile. Unfortunately, what the camera recorded was not Lydia's smile, but the sordid scene of the two of them embracing and sleeping together. Simon, tell me what you're thinking. Let's cut our losses in time and find a moment to divide the assets, parting on good terms. I looked up in shock. She cheated during the marriage and still had the nerve to demand money? I couldn't help but remind her, Lydia, you cheated. She chuckled softly. So what? Where's the evidence? I silently touched the camera embedded in my collar. Evidence? Of course, there is. But she and I have been married for many years. Does it really have to come to this? While I was hesitating, Lydia had already stood up. She picked up the bag I gave her and walked toward the door. Think it over yourself. I'm not coming back tonight. Without a doubt, I knew she was going to see that man. I stopped the recording on the miniature camera, took it down, and exported the video. Like self-torment, I watched it over and over again. After pausing the video, I got up and started observing the room. This apartment is where Lydia moved to after her job transfer. The two cities are not far apart, and I often come to see her when I have free time, afraid that she might be lonely alone. At first, she was very happy, but gradually, she always refused my requests to meet up. I've already made new friends. Don't worry about me. Why again? I'm busy. I'm going to have dinner with friends. Maybe next time. I'm busy. No, I've been working overtime recently. Don't come in this week. I suddenly found out why Lydia rejected me. On the cabinet, there was a photo album. The love story with Alex. After reading carefully, I finally understood what she was doing every time she rejected me. She was on a date with Alex. I feel like I am a complete and utter fool. I treated her so well, never missing flowers and gifts on holidays, sending blessings right at midnight. Sometimes, when she said she was feeling down, I would rush over just to give her a hug. I thought sadly, when will I find out something is wrong, and why does it have to be on our anniversary? Perhaps everything is destined by fate. Paper cannot wrap fire. Sooner or later, the truth will be exposed. Or, if Lydia keeps it well hidden, she could deceive me all the way until the divorce. Rather than being so unclear, I'd rather have a clear divorce. Just like it is now. Lydia and I have been living apart, but that only started last year. At that time, she was transferred for work and came to the city. Before leaving, Lydia anxiously asked me if I would look for other women while she was away. I smiled and coaxed her for a long time, giving all kinds of assurances. Whenever I have free time, I will definitely come to see her. At the same time, I also cheered her on, telling her to be mentally prepared to embrace the new job and new life. Although I don't really believe in long-distance relationships and feel uneasy inside, how could I bear to let Lydia give up the career she loves? I faithfully kept my promise, rushing back and forth between the two cities every weekend, come rain or shine. It was only later that this frequency gradually decreased. Lydia said she hopes I can get a good rest. Now it seems that was not care, but distance. I think I really do need to rest. Being separated by distance is truly exhausting. Lydia is tired from hiding things, while I am exhausted from dealing with various matters. All the big and small family affairs on both sides have to be handled by me. But after a busy day at work, I can only return alone to an empty home. Don't men need someone to rely on too? I sincerely hope that someone will keep a home light burning for me. I never complained to Lydia about any of these things. Now she tells me that long distance is exhausting and that there are no feelings left between us. I smiled wryly to myself. If it weren't for love, why would I go to such lengths? I can't quite describe what I feel inside. It's extremely complicated, not just sadness, but more of a sorrow. On the coffee table, there was a photo frame. Inside the frame was a photo of Lydia. This is a solo photo, only her, without me. Perhaps I had long been excluded by her. I just never realized it. After taking one last look, I stood up and left Lydia's house. It was past 2 in the morning when I finally drove back to my residential complex. This is the marital home Lydia and I designed together. All the decorations were planned by us back then. However, she didn't live here for long before being transferred to another city, and now she has her own home. I pushed open the door, took off my coat, and sat on the sofa, lost in thought. What should I do from now on? The life I had once counted on has now slipped away from me. Suddenly, the phone rang, and it was a call from Lydia. After hesitating for a moment, I still pressed the answer button. From the receiver came Lydia's indifferent voice, heading back so late? Don't you get tired? Why not just stay at a hotel? I remained silent, saying nothing. She continued, "Don't tell Mom and Dad about our situation just yet. Wait until I find time to come back, then we can have a proper talk." Since the transfer, Lydia only comes back during the new year. I always silently hope, wondering if she might take the initiative to come back and find me. Stroll through the streets we used to walk, then visit the park near our home. I never thought that the only exception would be her coming to talk about marriage. Okay. Hanging up the phone with a heart full of bitterness, I tried to calm myself, took a shower, and lay down on the bed. Staring blankly at the wedding photo on the wall, I spent the whole night sleepless. When dawn came, I took it down, carefully packed it, and put it into the storage room. I completed what I promised myself, without mentioning it to anyone, not even about my situation with Lydia. I will no longer take the initiative to send caring messages to Lydia, and she hasn't reached out to me either. The already distant relationship has become even more like strangers. In seemingly ordinary days, I can't control my memories. Actually, that night, Lydia said a lot to me. But at that time, I was so distraught that I couldn't hear clearly. However, these memories were etched deep into my heart. Looking back afterwards, every word was incredibly clear. Over and over again, deafening and enlightening. "Simon, I'm telling you, the most important thing in a relationship is the feeling. You don't feel like my lover at all, just a teammate living life together, which is really dull. You're rigid and worldly, you don't understand what I want at all. I'm already tired of this, it's really boring. We women need not only men to be mature, but just the right amount of childishness to bring more fun. Alex is very special, he can satisfy all my quirks. But you can't, not at all." After calming down and reconsidering Lydia's words, she was indeed right. We don't act like lovers at all. I can only infer her current life from the words between the lines in our chat, but I have no right to know the full picture. In this way, of course, I can't offer much thoughtful concern. And she never tries to see life's issues from my perspective. I am rigid because my family needs stability and does not allow me to take risks. I am worldly because the pressures of life force me to learn how to budget carefully. Lydia can quit without a word and pursue the career she loves. But I have to stay here, shouldering the car loan, the mortgage, and various insurances for both sets of parents. I thought that by bearing the burden myself, I could make things easier and more pleasant for the other person. Unexpectedly, such efforts only made us grow distant from each other. Perhaps facing pressure together is what gives us the motivation to go further. There are still many ornaments and decorations at home. They were all handmade by Lydia and me, carrying the beautiful memories of our passionate early days. At that time, she really enjoyed doing crafts, and whenever she saw a stall by the roadside, she couldn't help but pull me to sit down. Puzzles, clay paintings, hand-painted plaster. Lydia was skillful and always made things very exquisite. As for me, I wasn't good at it. I could only do a rough job and then hand it over to her for fine-tuning. Therefore, she often laughed at me, wondering how I still couldn't learn it. We've done it many times already. I spent the entire day cleaning the whole house. The next day, I packed all of Lydia's things and called the moving company to deliver them directly to her current address. At night, Lydia called me. Her voice was flustered and upset, and as soon as the call connected, she started accusing me. "Simon, you've gone too far. Was that really necessary?" Faced with the questioning, I was a bit confused. What's wrong? Are you throwing a tantrum at me? Intentionally trying to embarrass me? Her tone was harsh. So many things so late. How am I supposed to make space? Making such a mess, are you trying to cause trouble for me? My work is busy, life is tiring, I have no time to mess around with you. I found it ridiculous, hung up the phone immediately, too lazy to say a single useless word, let her think whatever she wants of me. Whether it's suspicion or disdain. Complaining about work and life? Didn't you choose all of this yourself? Actually, Lydia had two choices at the beginning. Stay in her original position and continue living her old life. or go to the company's new branch, with the possibility of gaining a higher position. She chose the latter, and so she no longer concerned herself with anything at home, leaving it all to me to handle alone. Looking back now, she was quite selfish. It was just that love blinded me, making me overlook the unfairness in this relationship. After letting go, I saw clearly. 2 weeks have passed since that meeting on the She festival. Lydia came back carrying the weekend. Her face was full of impatience as she pressed the doorbell wildly. Beside her, Alex gently comforted her. Seeing this scene through the video doorbell, I couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. Bringing your current boyfriend to discuss a divorce with your current husband? That's just outrageously ostentatious. I can almost imagine how furious Lydia's parents must be when others gossip, and how disappointed my parents must feel. Yet, she seems to have no such considerations. Suddenly, I don't want to talk anymore. If you want a divorce, just go straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Bringing a stranger home. What's that about? Making everyone uncomfortable? The phone started ringing. Simon, did you change the door lock code? What do you mean? That's a bit too much. No matter what, I am still the lady of this house. Actually, I didn't change the password. Lydia tends to make input errors, probably because I'm the one who usually opens and closes the door, and she rarely comes back, so she forgets. As for the key to the combination lock, she lost track of where she put it a long time ago. You can only say you deserve it. Bring your lover boyfriend. Let's talk outside. Neighbors around inevitably exchange gossip. Lydia's father and mother have never wronged me. I don't want to spread the news of Lydia's infidelity. There's no need to embarrass them, and I don't want to lose face myself. Unexpectedly, Lydia's reaction was even more intense than mine. Who are you calling a lover? Watch your mouth. From the receiver, I could hear Alex's voice beside me. Why does this person speak so rudely? No manners at all. You said he had a bad temper before, and I didn't believe it, but now I see it's true. Luckily, Xiao, you broke up with him, otherwise who knows what would have happened in the future. I almost laughed in anger. You did it yourselves, and you don't even want others to talk about it? Taking advantage and still acting innocent, you guys have taken all the benefits in the world, haven't you? Doing shameless things and having no shame as a person, you're truly invincible. This was the first time I spoke to Lydia with a sting without any disguise. She seemed not to have expected this from me and was momentarily stunned. I gave an address and then hung up the phone. People really should be a little more selfish. No need to worry about Lydia's petty feelings anymore. Keeping up the so-called gentleness and directly snapping back feels really satisfying. The tavern played soothing music, and I sat in the corner by the window. When Lydia arrived in a hurry, Alex came along as well. I don't know how she slanders me behind my back, but after he sat down, he immediately took on a defensive posture. The expression on the face seemed to say, Ciao, don't be afraid. If that scumbag dares to lay a hand on you, I will definitely protect you. Whether in a relationship or after marriage, I have never let Lydia do any heavy work. Washing clothes, cooking, and cleaning, all of it was done by me alone. Could it be that she secretly slandered me as a domestic abuser? By means of this self-deceptive method, one seeks moral consolation for oneself. How ridiculous it is. Lydia took the divorce agreement out of her bag and got straight to the point. Sign it, we're done. I picked up the agreement and read it carefully. If you think it's not suitable, I can have the lawyer make changes, but don't delay the divorce any longer. Lydia's face was icy, and she said coldly, I've had enough of you. Didn't you say we would talk more? I put down the agreement, expressionless. With a sneer, Lydia frowned and said, At this point, what else is there to talk about? Simon, don't you have any dignity at all? I don't love you anymore. Please stop disturbing my life. Alex chimed in from the side. Mr. Jiang, we're all men here. Being cheated on is never something honorable, right? As he spoke, I could detect the unabashed pride in his eyes. Treat Lydia like a trophy worth showing off. Sign this agreement as soon as possible, so when it gets out later, you can still say it's just because your relationship didn't work out and not for any other reason." He smiled. It's not to the point of being a joke. After saying that, Alex proudly kissed Lydia on the side of her face. Besides being shameless, I really don't know how else to describe this despicable couple. Lydia threw the pen in front of me and said impatiently, "Simon, I have neither the interest nor the time to waste with you. Just sign it quickly. It's better for both of us. When the time comes, if a divorce lawsuit is filed, whether you want a divorce or not, you will have to." I took a sip of the strong liquor in my glass. "Are you misunderstanding? When have I ever said I wouldn't get a divorce?" I put down the glass, the ruby-red liquid inside shimmering slightly. A small lamp sat on the corner of the table, emitting a soft orange-yellow glow. The light was dim, and I stared at Lydia's face, unable to find a trace of the person she once was. Time can change many things, to the point of completely transforming a person. With a slight sigh, I opened the divorce agreement. "Miss Lynn, I just have some objections to the terms of the agreement. I want to talk again, but it's only for this reason. Although this matter can be handled through a lawyer, I still think it's better for us to settle it face to face." Pausing for a moment, I continued, "Since that night on the Chishi festival when I caught you doing dirty things behind my back, I decided that we were over. I have my pride. How could I possibly try to hold on? It's just your wishful thinking." These words were blunt and unreserved, making Lydia's expression somewhat unpleasant. After all, I had never been so sarcastic to her before. And since these were all facts, she had no way to refute them. She could only try to appear calm, maintaining her dignity, and gave a feigned laugh. Lydia spoke harshly, retorting in secret, "I specifically had a lawyer draft the agreement. What objections could you possibly have?" Alex couldn't help but chime in, "That's a professional lawyer we're talking about. Do you really think a legal illiterate like you could find any loopholes? Ridiculous. Stop making trouble out of nothing with your tricks. Just sign it quickly. Otherwise, you'll just make yourself look like a clown." Hearing this, I couldn't help but cast a look of amusement, secretly doubting Lydia's standards for choosing a partner. Can a man who is so impatient and only knows how to show off really give her the future she wants? They always say love makes people blind, and women are extremely emotional creatures. Now it seems, indeed, that is true. Raising my hand to point at the open divorce agreement, I looked Lydia straight in the eyes and said, "The reason for our divorce is not some emotional breakdown, but your unilateral infidelity during the marriage. So, I do not agree with the 50-50 division of the property. Our shared property. You won't get a single share. You must leave empty-handed." Upon hearing this, Lydia and Alex were both stunned. It seems they never expected that I would bring up this matter. Otherwise, how could it possibly appear so openly right in front of me? Thinking back on their intimate gestures, I just feel like laughing. The recordings from the home's video doorbell, as well as the entire conversation this time, have all been recorded by me. If I bring up a lawsuit later, all of this can serve as ironclad evidence of Lydia's infidelity. For a man, is it embarrassing to be cuckolded? It can already be considered a great humiliation. If this gets out, the comments will be far from kind. But no matter what, I cannot accept Lydia taking my money and spending it on another man. Since getting married, Lydia spends exactly as much as she earns each month. Designer bags, lipsticks, cosmetics. She always only cares about herself, while I have to bear the expenses for the whole family. Besides that, she also regularly deposits money into our savings account as insurance for our old age and retirement. This is all the savings I have painstakingly accumulated on my own, little by little. How could Lydia just walk away with half without lifting a finger, all because of a flimsy divorce agreement? There's no such good thing in this world. Lydia frowned deeply and said in a low voice, "Simon, what do you mean?" I forced a smile. Didn't I make myself clear? I can accept a divorce, but you must leave with nothing. Seeing my firm attitude, her expression grew even uglier. "You know, I was just transferred to a new position last year. Everything is still in the early stages, and life is far from comfortable right now. After all these years of our relationship, do you really have to treat me like this? This matter involves principles and reality. I cannot make the slightest concession. Just listening to Lydia, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. What about the feelings we've had all these years? We've already reached the point of divorce. How you live is none of my business. Lydia was so angry she couldn't speak, and Alex hugged her tightly. Chow chow, don't be mad. A man with no tolerance like that is better off without. From now on, I will be your support. No matter what happens, I will take care of you. He made solemn promises, but they were nothing more than empty words. Who can't speak sweet words? But how many actually follow through? Yet Lydia just fell for it. She blinked, holding back tears of grievance. Asha, you're really so good. Saying this, Lydia glared at me with extreme disgust. You're right, it's better not to have a man like that. So, what if you have some money? Don't be so full of yourself. I don't care about that at all. When she said this, she probably didn't think about how much money she had spent on me over all these years of marriage. Back when we were discussing marriage, how could she have the nerve to mention a bride price of 660,000 yuan without saying a word about a dowry? Through this conversation, I completely saw Lydia's true character. When many things are stripped of their emotional veneer and tied to reality, only ugliness remains. At this point, I am only grateful that we did not have children. In this regard, I have to thank Lydia. No matter how much both our parents urged her, she always kept delaying, claiming that she wasn't mature enough and lacked the confidence to be a good mother. It was then that I realized Lydia was too playful. I was still naive enough to think she was just being playful, overlooking the fact that she hadn't considered the future at all and had no intention of giving herself stability. Watching Lydia and Alex being so lovey-dovey, my vengeful side took over, and I couldn't help but say some spoil-sport words. Are you her security? Do you know how much one of her lipsticks costs? Does she get tired of it in just a few days? Do you know how much one of her bags costs? She changes them every few months. Do you know how much her salary is each month after she was transferred? And how much subsidy she expects me to give? Alex looked completely bewildered, like a clueless young boy. After all, Lydia never mentioned these expenses to him. I had always been the one to cover them. Why bother? Looking back now, I find myself ridiculous. Is it worth giving so much for love? I soon found the answer to this question in my heart. Love is worth it, but Lydia is not. Alex already seemed a bit hesitant, as if he wished he could take back what he had just said. Lydia's face was so sullen it seemed about to drip, and she said in a deep voice, Simon, do you think what you're saying is interesting? You just think I owe you? How much? I'll pay you back, isn't that enough? I couldn't hold back anymore and shouted, pointing at her nose, you are the one who owes me. Can you even pay it back? Go home and carefully calculate how you're going to settle every single debt. Lydia gritted her teeth and glared at me, then grabbed Alex's hand and left without a word. I sat in my seat, raised my glass and drank it all in one go, then lit a cigarette I hadn't smoked in a long time. Inhaling the smoke fully into my lungs and then exhaling, I felt an incredible sense of relief. I really should thank Alex for letting me see Lydia's true colors. There is nothing to regret about cutting ties with a woman like that. I only feel fortunate. How many more years of youth does she have to squander? When she grows old and faded, what will she have to be proud of? Take care of yourself. The next morning, Lydia's father called me to ask about my situation with Lydia. Not wanting to burden the elderly man, I simply said that we were separated by distance, emotionally incompatible, and ultimately ended up divorcing. Lydia's father sighed deeply and said to me, Xiaochen, I know these years haven't been easy for you, and I feel very guilty. All of Xiao Qiao's burdens have had to be borne by you alone. My feelings were complicated, and I replied earnestly, Dad, these are things I should bear as her husband. Since you have already made your decision, I won't say much more. Pausing for a moment, Lydia's father said, but I still hope you will think it over carefully. After all, so many years of feelings are not easy to come by. He didn't know the full story, so of course he would advise as he should, and I simply said, I will think it over again. Dad, you and Mom take care of your health and look after yourselves well. This is probably the last time I face Lydia's parents as their son-in-law. After hanging up the phone, the waves of emotion in my heart still refused to calm down. I still remember the first time Lydia brought me home, carrying bags of gifts, sweating and feeling awkward. Lynn's mother warmly welcomed me, while Lydia's father earnestly spoke to me about many topics between men. At that time, I couldn't understand, but I remembered every word in my heart, fortunately always reminding myself later. Every girl is the most beloved princess of her parents. They deserve to be cherished. Lydia is no exception. From now on, the one who accompanies her will no longer be me. However, I will still cover up her infidelity. It's not that I want to play the good guy. It's just that Lydia's father and mother have been nothing but kind to me, even taking good care of me all these years. So as a junior, how could I possibly embarrass them? Neither emotionally nor logically, it should not be. The matter between Lydia and me, we will handle it ourselves. It's laughable. Just as I was still considering the Lynn family, I received a court summons. Lydia, dissatisfied with leaving empty-handed, has filed for divorce. When it comes to matters of principle, I certainly will not back down. I immediately contacted a lawyer and presented all the evidence I had. The lawyer carefully reviewed the materials and assured me, Mr. Jeong, these videos are sufficient to fully prove Ms. Lynn's infidelity during the marriage. This lawsuit cannot possibly be lost. You can rest assured and leave it to me. Do you have any other requests regarding the divorce judgment? So, I discussed the related matters with the lawyer again. The moment I stepped out of the law firm, I couldn't quite put into words what I was feeling inside. I really can't understand why Lydia insisted on making such a big deal out of this, causing both sides so much embarrassment. The expressions of the pedestrians entering the firm varied, most of them burdened with heavy thoughts. I stood by the roadside, murmuring to myself, why bother? Several days passed, and the day of the court hearing arrived. The lawyer finished organizing all the materials and went to the court with me. In the courtroom, I saw Lydia again. After not seeing her for a while, she looked very haggard. Even though she had put on makeup, it still couldn't hide the two large dark circles under her eyes and the exhaustion on her face. Unexpectedly, Alex did not come with her. Did you have a fight? No matter what, he is now Lydia's partner. Moreover, Lydia and I ended up divorcing because of him. Considering all of Alex's behavior, he is clearly an unreliable and irresponsible man. Vaguely, I can guess some things, but they no longer concern me. First, Lydia and her defense lawyer spoke, describing how difficult her situation was and how much she needed to equally share the marital property. But when my lawyer presented my savings records, it clearly showed how much I had contributed to this family. Then, when he produced evidence of Lydia's infidelity during the marriage, the outcome of this lawsuit was basically decided. Once the judge sorted everything out, there was no doubt that I would win the case. Receiving such a result, Lydia's already haggard complexion grew even more sallow. She was ordered to leave empty-handed. All those years of marriage and affection yielded nothing, only the passage of time. At this point, I have nothing left to say to her. I put away the relevant documents, and as we walked out of the courthouse, I said to her, "Take good care of Mom and Dad. They've had a hard time." After speaking, I was about to start the car and leave. Just as I was about to close the door, I noticed Lydia chasing after me. I frowned and asked in confusion, "Is there something else?" Lydia stood by the car, subconsciously fiddling with the strap of her bag, looking a bit uneasy. She gave a forced smile and asked me, "Simon, are you free?" After thinking for a moment, I really had no plans, so I honestly replied, "I am at the moment. What's up?" Lydia curled the corners of her mouth slightly, her expression a bit sorrowful. "Then can you take me around again?" I originally wanted to refuse, not wanting to have any more involvement with her. A failed marriage ending in this way is indeed quite ugly. Lydia looked into my eyes, her eyes misty, and said quietly, "Let's just take it as a farewell." I was stunned, falling into silence. Yeah, no matter how many years of feelings and how much we've given, from now on, we will no longer have any ties. Thinking of this, I still find it hard to come to my senses, only feeling an emptiness in my heart. For adults, parting often means a lifetime. Even if the way we part is not dignified, it does not prevent us from giving this relationship a proper farewell. Putting my emotions aside, I took a deep breath and said, "Get in the car." "Where do you want to go?" I asked Lydia in the passenger seat. She thought seriously for a moment, then smiled wryly and replied, "I don't know either. How about just driving around?" I nodded and pressed down on the accelerator. Along the way, Lydia looked out the car window, occasionally speaking about things. They were all memories of the past. For example, when passing by the mall entrance, she would start talking about the things that happened to us inside that mall. Which shops we visited, which restaurants we ate at, or even which places we played in. Some amusing or embarrassing stories, she actually remembered them all. It's just that we hadn't talked about them for so long that it seemed like they were forgotten. During the casual chat, I couldn't help but fall into reminiscence, smiling as I responded with a few words. Between us, it is no longer so sharp. At least, many memories are known only to us and only we can tell them in the whole world. We can still talk and laugh, as if none of this has ever happened. Keep it dignified and say goodbye. Unconsciously, I found myself driving to our high school. This is where Lydia and I first met. After many years of not coming back, it has been renovated. Just by looking at the appearance, it's almost unrecognizable. What a big change. Lydia said with a sigh, "I heard that after we graduated, the school's rubber track was finally completed and all the desks and chairs in the school were replaced. I'm really envious of our juniors." I looked at Lydia's profile, my gaze quite complicated. To me back then, she was just the girl in the next class who was both smart and beautiful. She seemed to sense it and turned her head. "Why are you staring at me?" I touched my nose and changed the subject. Many schools are like this. The good things are always in the next grade. After saying that, I opened the car door. "Let's get out and walk for a bit. I'm a little tired of driving." Lydia got off the car, carrying her bag. "Wait for me." We came to the little restaurant where we used to have lunch. The auntie was still the same auntie, her smile still warm and kind. I guess she probably doesn't recognize us anymore. After all, year after year, batch after batch, there are so many students. I placed my order and sat by the table waiting, while Lydia, quite familiar, went up to greet, "Auntie, long time no see. How come you don't look a day older?" Auntie was momentarily taken aback. Then she smiled. "Are you a student at number 1 high school? Which class? What's your name?" I might still remember. Listening to their conversation, I couldn't help but laugh along. In the half-day afternoon, Lydia and I visited many places. The sun set in the west, and night fell. Lydia murmured with some regret, "How did it get so late? There are still so many places we haven't been." "Yes, so many places." I whispered along. "Many things only after losing them do we feel deep regret. People always say cherish, but what exactly does it mean to cherish? No matter how you treat it, time will always pass." I think simply enjoying the whole process with a calm heart is already a way of cherishing. Lydia and I both fell silent, yet the atmosphere inside the car was not heavy, but rather a calmness like after all the petals have fallen. The night view outside the window blurred past. Compared to daytime, it was now hard to see clearly. No matter how intently I stared, all I could see was a hazy stream of bustling traffic. Driving all the way, I parked the car beside an older residential area. "We're here." Lydia sat quietly in the passenger seat for a moment, then pushed the door open and got out. She stood outside the car door, mouth slightly open, as if about to speak, but then hesitated, swallowing the words back. I knew what she wanted to ask, and she also knew how I would respond. Some things are better left unsaid. I looked towards the neighborhood, where a warm-toned light was glowing in one of the homes. That was Lydia's father Linmu's home. Once Lydia goes back, she will probably explain the situation. With a slight sigh, I said to Lydia, I haven't told my parents about you. Our divorce was simply because of incompatibility. Lydia was stunned for a moment, her eyes quickly filling with tears. Her lips pressed tightly together, holding back tears. She choked out, "Thank you. It's nothing, you should head back early." After saying that, I rolled up the car window and drove off under Lydia's watchful gaze. Turning the corner, her frail figure disappeared from the rearview mirror. I didn't allow myself to look back. I kept moving forward. Some things, once they end, are truly over. Since you've decided to move forward, never look back. Because looking back only brings regrets.